We saw Dr. Lee before we met her. In the dining hall, she wore knee-high black leather boots and sunglasses so large they practically rested on her cheekbones. It was early September in Green Valley, South Carolina, but even her winters didn't call for boots like that. Jenny and I watched as she nudged a tray along with just the tips of her fingers, as if wanting to touch it as little as possible. She stood on the colored tiles in front of the green beans spotted with bacon, the mashed potatoes and their vat of gravy, the dripping kernels of sweet corn. In her black sheath dress, a black leather tote on her shoulder, she looked out of place, her outfit more fit for an office than a school. Somehow, already, we could sense her disappointment. Maybe it was the way she had walked into the room, the sigh when she entered, the pause in front of the trays before resigning herself to take one and approach the counter. Well, if this is what I have to work with, she seemed to be saying, so be it. What you want, baby? Said Barbara, the dining hall manager. She wore plum-colored lipstick and spoke to Dr. Lee in the same way she did us. Her wetchu, like a sneeze, then a dip into the long, low want, ending in a high, soft baby that nearly sounded like babe. Dr. Lee did not seem the least bit taken aback about being called baby. She said, I'll have some of this, please, and pointed to the wet, dark green mass that we knew to be canned spinach. Her voice was cool and quiet. When she spoke, it was nearly accentless, unlike my mother, who spoke English fluently, but not without some remnant of her native Mandarin. The spinach was slapped onto the plate. What else? Said Barbara. That's it, said Dr. Lee. That be all? Yes, thank you. The plate, a bright orange plastic disc, was passed over, and Dr. Lee set it on her tray. One hip cocked, one black boot pointed toward the tables, she carried her tray to the salad bar, her shoes clicking on the tile. She stood over the soup and lifted the ladle, inspecting the contents of the tureen, chicken noodle. At a table by the windows, Dr. Lee sat down and took her sunglasses off. I saw that her eyes were dark and her skin pale and smooth. Her long hair, set loose to the humidity, had begun to curl just the slightest bit at the ends. She ate the spinach quickly but neatly, as if wanting to get it over with. Of course, it hardly needed chewing and, in fact, was a weekly offering we all avoided. It would be reheated and resalted for a casserole on Saturday, when the dining staff took the leftovers from the week and baked them twice between sheets of flour. Dr. Lee didn't know yet that meals were never this calm at Greenwood, but today, 3 days before the fall semester, was an exception. When school was in session, dinners were frenzied affairs. Lunches, worse. We simultaneously needed to eat everything and say everything. Now, it was well past lunchtime, nearly 2:30. The dining hall was empty. Just then, Jenny waved a hand in front of my face. Earth declare, she said. She adjusted her glasses and bent her head toward mine, our faces so close that her light brown ponytail brushed my shoulder and looked where I was looking. I wonder if the Asian Student Society will ask her to sponsor them, said Jenny. They don't already have a sponsor? I asked. Somehow, they function without one since there are no Asian teachers. Well, there were none, anyway. Where did you hear that? I asked. Everyone knows. Where have you been? Living under a rock, Manav? I groaned. It annoyed me that even Jenny knew more about the Asian Student Society than I did, given that I was Asian and she wasn't. I had applied to the society last spring and been rejected. I was pretty sure I knew exactly why, could trace my failure back to first-year Halloween. I dressed up as Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's, a movie that I later found out was on the Society's list of boycotted films. Of course it was. Mr. Yunioshi was a buck-toothed, bumbling Japanese caricature played by a white actor. I cringed at the memory of my elbow-length gloves and fake cigarette holder.